لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك له لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك له لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. So I've been asked to do a brief reflection on my experience with Hajj. So first, Assalamu alaikum everybody. It's good to, I guess, virtually interact with everybody after some time. And yeah, so we'll get started. So, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. Salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Okay, so yeah, my name's Usama Zahid. I lived in Champaign, Urbana area from 2012 to 2019, roughly. And alhamdulillah, I was blessed to go on Hajj in 2016. And yeah, just was asked to share a few reflections on that. So I was trying to organize my thoughts on this, and more or less, I was kind of able to organize everything under two major categories. One were things that I learned about myself from, like, within myself during Hajj. And then the second was things that I learned about myself and otherwise from my interactions with others during the Hajj, right? So obviously, and in that second category, it's because it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? You're interacting with tons of people. You're interacting probably with more people than you ever have before, from all different walks of life and different parts of the world. So anyways, okay, so that's the two things I'm going to go into. So we can go into them in order and just have a couple of lessons under each one. So in the first one, things that I learned about myself. Again, under each thing I'll have 2 points. So the first, or 2 lessons. The first lesson was this: the value, at least for my own self, of organization and discipline with regards to worship and with regards to my own spirituality. So this started actually with a lesson or some advice that I got from a local brother in the community, Brother Imran, who told me about, he's like, okay, first of all, when you're thinking about tawaf, and you're thinking about doing that, so there's some repetition to it. How do you accomplish it? How do you keep concentration and focus? The suggestion that he gave me was that plan it out beforehand. So for each round of your tawaf, there's no prescribed adhkar or anything like that, right? Except for a small portion of it. So he said, have du'as that you have set for yourself for different people, or different people in your life, or different things that you need help with, or whatever, for each round of the tawaf. And in that way, I was able to organize that aspect of worship, right? So for instance, I kind of did it in like outward circles, right? So first a round of tawaf, making dua for oneself, second for immediate family, and then so on and so forth, this type of thing. And I found a lot of value in that. And that helped me, alhamdulillah, I'd gone for Umrah before, and I don't know, I can't say I did not get anything out of the tawafs before, for instance, but it helped me approach it. It helped me, I think, get more out of it, squeeze more out of it, gain more value out of that limited time. And then another thing, again, getting back to that idea of organization and discipline, it's probably more mundane, but for instance, the little story was that, when we first arrived in Medina, they set you up in the hotel and then say, okay, you're going to get your food at this buffet and all of that. And then what happens is that, you go there and there's so much food and you can eat whatever you want and this and that. And on the first day, obviously I made that mistake, right? I ate too much. I wanted to eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that, to the point where, like when you're so full that you can't concentrate on what you need to do, and then you can't get done what you need to get done. So pretty much that happened. Then that next day, I'm too lazy to be able to make it out to the masjid or to concentrate on your prayers and things like that. And that made me realize that at that time that, there needs to be discipline. There needs to be, even if you're in this special place, even though, that's not going to override everything. It's not just going to magically make things happen just because you're in Medina or you're in Makkah, or, for that matter, if we want to extend it, you're in the days of Dhul Hijjah or you're in Ramadan, that it's not just going to be kind of sheer force of will that's going to get you through it. There needs to be some discipline around things. You need to be able to focus on what's important, not get distracted by, the other things around you. So again, those are two things just from the experience that I learned about myself. And then the second one, in terms of from within oneself, was how much spiritual potential we have. So this specifically came from Arafah, from the lesson from Arafah. So on Arafah, again, there's no prescribed adhkar and worship necessarily. Actually, you're just spending several hours, and the primary thing that's at least we were told, that was the recommendation, was to make dua. And that's actually a bit of a daunting task, right? If you take these several hours just with you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just making dua. And to be honest, it wasn't something that I thought I was capable of, right? Like, you've tried that before. I've tried that before, to just sit after the salah and make dua, or just reflect, make dhikr. Like, you kind of top out, right? It only goes for a certain period of time. And several hours, going from like not even be able to handle like minutes to going for several hours. But subhanAllah, like, with all the people that were there, with the moment, with the value that, this is Hajj, is Arafah, this is like the peak, the essential thing. We did it, right? Like, not just me, like everybody there, we did dua. We really, you really pour your heart out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you do it for hours. And, upon reflection, you realize that it's like, well, it's not like a different person that was there. That was actually me. So it means I have that potential, just haven't perhaps capitalized on it in other places. So again, it was something I learned about myself there. Okay, so then that second major category that I was talking about was lessons that we learned from our interactions with other people. So the first that was interesting, let's see how I phrased it here, was I got to know people without knowing anything about them from before, right? And that way didn't have any preconceived notions about them. So when we interact with people regularly, we kind of, we'll ask, well, what do you do for work? Where are you from? Things like this. It was interesting. We maybe did the where are you from thing, right? Or you read things about people, right? You see like what type of clothing they're wearing, what type of car they're driving, whether they're a parent, whether, any of these types of things. All of a sudden we have all these layers and assumptions and suppositions that we have about people normally. But in our Hajj group, it was interesting. At most, you kind of got like, oh, I'm from Arizona, or I'm from St. Louis, or whatever. That was kind of like it. And then everybody's kind of wearing, relatively simple clothing, even when they're not in ihram, they're trying to deal with the heat and this and that. So almost have no preconceived notions about people. And you're just going about and you're developing relationships with people, right? And it's about like, hey, we're going to go do tawaf now. Oh, we're going to get ready for this now. Oh, we need to shave our heads after we did Umrah. Okay, let me help you out with this. Let me do this. And you're developing these relationships with people, and it doesn't have any of those other things. And it really kind of, one time when it struck me, it was really interesting. There were a couple of brothers that were my roommates, who I had developed, a good relationship with, and we had planned about when we were going to Masjid Nabawi, and we were doing different things. And I remember one morning, we went to the one of the common areas that we used to gather in, and I saw a couple of them on video calls with their kids who are like in high school. They're like 10 years younger than me at that point. And I hadn't even thought about that. I hadn't thought about, oh, these are people that are older than me. These are people that I maybe typically wouldn't interact with in this way or build these types of relationships with. Just because, not for any good reason, but just because that's how I operated in the world, right? And I mean, it was really interesting having that reveal like afterwards. And seeing that, well, since I didn't have that up front, I didn't have these barriers or these judgments or these things like this, right? And we saw this like in other ways as well. And another, like in a kind of parallel vein or on a similar note anyways, under this broad category of lessons that I learned from my interactions with others. It came out of this story when we were going to Masjid Nabawi. So that's a section of Masjid Nabawi that I believe, and I'm sure Sheikh Usman can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but there was a section of the masjid that the Prophet ﷺ designated that is one of the gardens of paradise. And people were, we were all kind of gathering there. So, it's that part that at least previously was marked off by different colored carpet and all of that. So, people try to go there and pray some nawafil there. And there's a rush, it's limited, so on and so forth. Anyways, we're there, we're in line, and remember, you're kind of in this crowd. You're literally like, forget 6 feet, you don't have like 6 inches from you and the next person. You're really like pushed up against each other, and you're kind of going there. And I remember I'm in this line, I'm in this group, and in front of me there's a couple of I believe I'm blanking. They were Dagestani or Bosnian. It was these giants, giant brothers, right? And we had, I'm a small person, right, comparatively, and we're going along in the line, and we're talking, and they're like, "Oh, what's your name? Where are you from?" So on and so forth. And we finally get to that area where we're supposed to be doing the nawafil. And how are you going to do it? Where's this room? You can't even, And then these brothers just turn around. They're like, "Okay, Usama, you pray here now. We're gonna make space for you." And they make this like wall. And they like push, and I've just met these people. We've just talked and changed names, and subhanAllah, like you just had that feeling of like natural brotherhood and natural connection. And what was our only connection? That we were Muslims. We were Muslim brothers. And that, I know it's not perfect. I know it's a little bit, just a little snippet from something, but just getting that feeling again from the interactions with people, from people that the only thing is that you kind of have this common purpose that you're there for, this common thing that's pushing you through life. And it was just kind of like an amazing moment there. And again, that lesson there, that getting that natural brotherhood, realizing that there are people throughout the world, even when we feel kind of like isolated or separated or not, there are people who are, to be honest, they're looking out for you. They're going to make dua for you. They're going to be there for you. So that was that second thing. So just to kind of wrap things up and bring that summary again, is that there were two major categories that I reflected on from the Hajj lessons. One was things that I learned about myself from within, kind of myself and my own things that happened to me, and then the second was things that I learned about from my interactions with others. So, anyways, this is a recording, so I realize I don't actually have to recap. You can rewind and watch it. So, anyways, jazakallahu khair on everybody for listening. I hope you found some benefit in this. And that's it. Okay. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Fortunately, it looks like our Eid celebration will be different too. The most important part of the Eid celebration is the Salatul Eid is going to take place at home. That's right, in your living room, or if you're lucky, in your backyard. For most people, this will be the first time in their life leading their Eid prayer. So here's a quick guide on how to go about it. Eid Salah consists of 2 parts. The Salah itself, followed by the khutbah. Firstly, let's look at the legal ruling in Sharia for each to get a better understanding. The ruling for the Salah. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, it is wajib, which means it's almost like fard or mandatory. According to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, it is fardu kifaya, which means a communal obligation, where if only some people in the community do it, it will suffice for the rest. And a sunnah muakkada, or an emphasized sunnah, according to Imam Shafi'i and Imam Malik. But we are all strongly encouraged to pray the Eid Salah regardless of the technical differences in its ruling. Now for the ruling for the khutbah of Eid. The khutbah for Eid Salah is not mandatory, nor is it a requirement of Eid Salah. Thus, it is not required to give khutbah in every home. Anas radiallahu anhu, when he missed the Eid prayer, he prayed the Salah at home, but didn't ask his companions to give the khutbah. So the best thing to do is find the time your local masjid will stream the khutbah live, or any masjid in your time zone, and pray before that khutbah by 5 to 10 minutes, so that you can listen to the khutbah after your prayer at home for a general reminder. Now let's talk about the Salah itself. So even in regular circumstances, if someone misses Eid Eid Salah in the masjid, it's okay to pray at home. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, as previously mentioned, once missed the Eid prayer in Basra, so he gathered his family and had one of his household lead them in 2 rak'ah. Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, the famous scholar of Kufa and teacher of Imam Abu Hanifa, said, pray as they prayed and do the takbirat as they did. Now that the ruling is clear, let's clarify the method of the salah itself. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, one is to pray with 6 extra takbirat. The first takbir is to commence the salah, known as takbiratul ihram, followed by 3 extra takbirat, dropping one's hands in each one and tying them after the third. Then the prayer will proceed as usual with Surah Al-Fatiha, then preferably with Surah Qaf, chapter 50, or Surah Al-A'la, chapter 87. Then the prayer will proceed as normal until the end of the recitation in the second rak'ah, where preferably Surah Al-Qamar, chapter 57, or Surah Al-Ghashiyah, chapter 88 should be read if possible. Then 3 extra takbirat will be recited, dropping hands in each and then going to ruku' in the 4th takbir. Then salah will continue as usual. According to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, there will be 7 takbirat in the beginning of the first rak'ah, then salah will continue as usual with Surah Al-Fatiha and onwards. Then in the second rak'ah, there will be 6 takbirat, then salah will continue as usual with Surah Al-Fatiha and onwards. According to Imam Shafi'i, there will be 8 in the beginning of the first rak'ah before Surah Al-Fatiha. Then salah will continue as usual. After the salah, tune in for a live khutbah and enjoy the rest of your Eid with friends and family. Eid Mubarak.